Bigfoot's walking through the forest when he smells something good. Someone's gone and left out a pile of food. He's walking around the corner, and what does he see? A pile of fresh fruit just waiting for me. Think I'll go over there.
Okay, good afternoon. I'm here with Buggs Adamson of Half Moon Bay, California. My name is Tom Yamaroon, and we're gonna talk to Buggs about a Bigfoot encounter he had. We'll go over when this occurred, but this was while he was hunting, so I'm gonna let him start the narrative and tell us what happened the second time you encountered a Bigfoot.
Well, we'd been hunting up in this it's kind of owned by the Masonite outfit, and we'd been up there quite a while and headed back towards the cabin, and there's a big steep canyon that goes down, that leads from where we were hunting to the road down below, which takes us right into the cabin. So what happened was that place is really heavy and thick, and just a good place for a big old buck to be hiding there down there. And my brother he was having troubles, and so he didn't feel like going down there. And my buddy he was hunting on the road, so they figured they'd stay on the road and just down below the road, and then I'd drop down into the canyon, and they'd be way up above me, and they could look down in there, and if anything moved, they could get a shot or let me know, and I could hunt the side hill on the other side of me. So anyway, I started down into this thing, and it's a nightmare down there. And what happens is, before years before, there'd been a fire in there, and a lot of the trees were deadfall, and they fell, and then it had new growth coming up through those trees.
Right.
So there was just a big layer of deadfall all the way down through this creek, and the creek itself was pretty rugged with big washouts and stuff like that, and manzanita and buckbrush and poison oak all growing up in and around the base of the creek, and almost impossible. Plus it had these myriad of logs just falling every which way that were burned and broken from the fire that was up in there, and so they were laced all over in the creek. And I started out in the creek because that's the toughest part of it, and finally I couldn't go no more, and I started up out of the creek. And when I got up out of the creek a ways, then I noticed there was something down in the creek that was above me and was coming down the creek towards me as I went on down the canyon. And then as the thing got closer, you could hear these sounds he was making, and there were some pretty loud, scary sounds, and it sounded like somebody in there with really heavy asthma problem. And then he started shaking the trees and started kind of growling and kind of a roar like that, and growling, and he was shaking the trees. And as we got further down there, I could see his hands, and where he grabbed the trees and shake them, and he kept himself completely hidden. He was hid, you couldn't hardly see him, and the stuff was so heavy down there. And he kept shaking the trees, and some of them tan oaks, he would shake them so hard they were like a fly rod. It was like he was, you know, how you cast a fly rod, how the tip bends, and he was shaking the branches off the top. Meanwhile, he kept making this growling, gurgling sound, and like a bear or something, they'll pop their teeth and make some I don't know what they call that kind of noise they make. It's kind of a popping noise when they're mad. But this guy was making a growling sound, and later on I was able on that one tape to find the exact sounds that he was making on them Sierra sound tape. That he was making that same sound, and kind of a guttural grunting sound, and growl, and kind of a growl and a grunt, and all at one time, you know. And I don't know, it was a strange sound, but it was loud. And meanwhile, Tommy and Tom up above, my brother and my buddy, they're yelling down at me that there's something in that canyon, I better get out of there. And then I'm yelling back at them, can you see it? And then I lost track of them. They hurried and got further down the road where they had a better look up in there. And then went maybe another 15, 20 minutes or so, and this thing he's getting closer, but it just seemed like he didn't want to get that close, but if he wanted to get to me, he could have done it easy. But he kind of stayed right down in the very bottom of that creek. And meanwhile, I was climbing up the other side as much as I was going down. I was side hilling to get up the other ridge and get down out of there. That was my closest way to get down to the road. And then meanwhile, Tom, they're both named Tom, and they're starting to yell at me. They're, Buggs, get the heck out of there. That thing is coming after you. They said, can you see him? No, but he's big. He's a great big thing. Get out of there, because he's coming after you. And so I figured, oh crud, I got to get out of here then. And then he was really shaking the trees. He was breaking the brush.
Just a second. Now, we're doing our best with the environmental sounds out here on the California coast, but okay, go ahead. He was
biker gang.
Yeah.
Anyway, he was getting real excited then, and he was really breaking a lot of stuff, and I just started trying to get out of there, and then I was walking on top of the deadfall the best I could, and hanging onto the branches that have grown up between it to get my way out of there. And I slipped and fell, and I dropped down into a trail, and it turns out that the deer had tunnels down in there underneath the deadfall. Mm-hmm. And there was a tunnel down there, just like a deer trail, and it's only about 4 feet high, and I had to get down on my hands and knees, and I got out of there. I got in this tunnel and got running, got where I could run, and then I ran out of there. I ran down, and just before I got to the road, I heard a shot, and what the heck? And I thought maybe, you know, he'd come out and Tommy and them had shot at him, but as I run out, the guy that owned the property there had seen me coming down there, and he was hunting, so he just got him a good seat and sat there, and I run a big old 3-point buck up, or maybe the Bigfoot did, and run it out in front of him, and he killed him right on the road. But
and that happened right during all this.
Yeah. And then I ran out there, and then Tom, they come running up, and then, what the crud, did you see that thing? And no, I couldn't see him. And they said the thing was massive. They said he was in there. They said he was coming after you.
Did they hear the growls? Did they hear the sounds?
Yeah, they could hear them too.
Now, I wanted to ask you, when you say you saw the hands,
yeah,
can you describe them? What did they look like to you?
Just big black brown hands. Just they just wrap around the tree and just shake the heck out of it.
And
he was like he was breaking branches. He'd grab the branches and break them.
Did you actually see a hand break a branch?
You could see him pull them down, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Snap them.
And it was amazing how you described the tan oaks flipping like a fly rod. You know, that's an intense intimidation display, obviously, and I think
looking back on it now, I think he just wanted me out of there.
Right.
Anytime he could have come up there and got to me if he wanted to.
You know, that's a behavior, Buggs, that it repeats. It's a behavior that's repeated in other accounts by other people who've had similar encounters where it could have caught up to him, but it didn't.
It didn't.
It wanted to get him out of a certain area, so it used an intimidation technique. And but that's amazing. Now, in relation to when you had your first sighting, when it crossed in front of the cabin that night, how long after was this? Next year, the next hunting season?
No, this was, I would say maybe 3 weeks.
Oh, that soon after?
Yeah, it was about 3 weeks or so.
Wow.
Yeah, it was about 3 weeks or so after.
Oh, what were you guys thinking? I mean, you had that first sighting that you say 5 or 6 of you saw the subject that night, the first night.
Yeah.
And now you're up hunting 3 weeks later. Were you having any thoughts about, well, what are we going to do out here? Or, I don't know, what was going through your mind?
Well, I don't know. I never really felt too ill at ease, you know, hunting that and even wandering around by myself. But, you know, I got looking around a lot more, you know, but the thing with the canyon was coming down that canyon, you could smell that thing.
Okay.
I was a little bit upwind, but you could smell him, and boy, he smelled bad.
Describe that. So you on this occasion you did smell him.
You could smell him, yeah. And there was just a horrible stench coming from.
Anything you compare that to?
Well, kind of in between skunk and something dead. But it had a smell like it was a smell that was a created smell, kind of. You know, like a skunk. Sometimes they don't smell, but when they spray, you can smell that, and it's, you know, it's different than I've been around bears where they've been eating dead things, you know, roadkill or something like that, you know, and they smell the high heavens. But it's not like that. It's a lot worse.
Created smell.
Yeah.
Well,
it's like a musk type smell.
I guess I should do my due diligence. So 3 weeks later, we're thinking this is in September 1970. Time of day?
Yeah, this is in just about noon. I would say noon to maybe 12:30 or something like that. It took me a good 40-some minutes to get out of there.
40 minutes that went on.
At least.
At least. That's incredible.
Yeah, it was a long time. And they come around on the top of the ridge and then down the road. That's almost 2 miles.
Till you met up with Tom?
Yeah, Tom and Tom, my brother and my buddy, and I just come straight down, but they went all the way around, and they walked that whole thing all in that time.
The weather conditions that day?
Not too hot, about 55, 60.
Okay.
It was, it hadn't been raining or anything. It was still, you know, hot up in that kind of country. It was still pretty hot, but it was kind of a cool day, and it had been foggy that morning. We were up there hunting in the fog, so it kind of cooled things down.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I also wanted for the listeners, the viewers, to know that this area, when they subdivided the mountains, more or less, it was a mill owner who owned the area for logging, I guess, for timber, and you didn't have. How close were your closest neighbors? The next property?
Well, this fella here where this canyon was, we didn't know him too well, but he was an old fellow from Germany, and we just called him the German. And he had a tent up there that he stayed in. And
a tent?
And then we built the cabin, which was about half a mile from him. Excuse me. Oh, sorry, Don. And then down the creek that run in front of the cabin, if you go down the creek for about a mile, there's another, it's kind of a old cabin somebody built down there, and it's kind of a crude built thing, but his nephew was living down there, and that's quite a ways
About a mile. So where did the incident occur with relation from your cabin?
This would be well, it'd start up the top, and it'd be about from a mile to maybe a half a mile.
Okay. Well, great. I think that's a great recounting of what happened that day.
It's still kind of in that area.
Anything you want to add, Buggs, about that second incident?
No, just it stayed down in the creek. It never once come up on the side of the ridge when I started going up the side. It never did climb up there. So at the time I was just scared as heck, and I now that I look back, I think he just wanted me out of there.
Yeah.
He could have had family up there or something. He didn't want me around.
Right.
But no, that other than I tried to get a look at him, and I never did get a good look.
Right.
I could, you know, at times you could see a silhouette.
Yeah.
You know, when when the canopy kind of, you know, it got pretty scarce, and where you could look through the leaves and branches and stuff.
You did see a silhouette?
You could kind of see a silhouette.
How big was it?
It was big. Whatever it was really big. I mean, he was really moving some greenery.
Yeah. Well, thank you. This is excellent, and I really wanted to get these on tape. I'll say this on behalf of everybody that attends our monthly meetings in San Mateo, California. We really wanted to do this. Been meaning to do this, to get this oral history, these oral accounts of your Bigfoot encounters, because you know they're fascinating, and so this is great. Again, I wish the environmental noises. We'll see how the tape comes out, but thank you again, Buggs, and
Alrighty.
Then I'll stop this. This is Tom Yamron saying thanks for listening, and happy winter solstice.
Bigfoot's walking through the forest when he smells something good. Someone's gone and left out a pile of food. He's walking around the corner, and what does he see? A pile of fresh fruit.